Welcome again to another Prime Minister's press conference. As usual, the Prime Minister will read a short statement, after which he will invite questions from the members of the press. So, please join me in welcoming the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Press Secretary, Mr. Clifton Phillip. I want also to recognize with us at this time the Honorable Senior Minister and Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Vance Henry. With us also is the Minister of Public Infrastructure, etc., the Honorable Ian Patches-Liebert. We have with us Senator Wendell Phipps with responsibility for health and related matters. I also want to recognize, of course, the Cabinet Secretary and other senior officers of the government. I am indeed grateful that representatives of the media are here today to help in facilitating the actualizing of this another press conference. I am grateful for this opportunity to update our citizens and residents of our beautiful federation and a few matters of national importance. I want to begin by assuring the public that as this country's chief servant, I wake up every day with one thing on my mind, and that is to ensure that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis receive their fair share of this nation's prosperity. My administration has a mandate to implement the prosperity agenda, and our prosperity agenda will be substantially complete at the end of Team Unity's second term in office. This government is concerned that every family has food on its table, a decent job, and a comfortable home in which to live in secure neighborhoods. These things, of course, will not occur overnight, but with the right vision, the right policy and prescriptions, and measurable objectives, we certainly can succeed. After celebrating our independence, our resolve as a government is even stronger to build an even more great St. Kitts and Nevis. We create jobs in the country by creating sustainable growth. My government is pleased then that according to the latest IMF reports, St. Kitts and Nevis is projected to lead the Caribbean with the highest level of growth at 5%. Indeed, for Latin America and the Caribbean, the average growth is estimated at a mere 1.5%. And yet, on the 9th of October 2015, the IMF report, dubbed Jobs, Wages, and Latin America's Slowdown, indicated a revised downward trajectory for growth in Latin America and the Caribbean, averaging about 0.5%. Panama is expected to experience a high growth at 5.9%. I am advised by our financial secretary that the IMF estimates for St. Kitts and Nevis, those estimates are quite conservative. And by her own projections, St. Kitts and Nevis will grow this year by 7.1%. This relatively high level of growth is being projected for our federation because the country, and indeed the economic actors, but perhaps more importantly, the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis have confidence in the Team Unity government. I am happy to report the following as part of our economic scorecard of this new administration. Construction continues apace without significant stoppage. And for the first 6 months of 2015, growth in the construction sector was recorded at 12.3%. The heightened activity in the sector was reflected by a 97.5% increase in building materials sales over the comparative period of 2014. Transport, storage, and communication grew by 16.7%. Wholesale and retail trade went up by 10.9%. Financial intermediation by 4.8%. The hotel sector continues its growth path, with projections for the opening of Park Hyatt and Embassy Suites, etc., all on track. Tourism this year, or at least for the first 6 months, grew by a significant 8.4%, with stayovers growing by 11.5%. Arrivals from all markets, for example, Canada, USA, the UK, are up by greater than 6%, and the cruise passenger arrivals are up by 25.2%. Importantly, too, the Social Security statistics reveal that more businesses are being set up. More businesses means more jobs, more income, more people on a constructive path to self-reliance and prosperity. For the first half of 2015, January to June, the Social Security records 304 new businesses registered, of which 150 are self-employed entities. Of course, these companies are registered in St. Kitts and on the island of Nevis. The Consumer Price Index went down by 2%, with food and non-alcoholic beverages declining by 9.5%, thanks, of course, to the government's removal of VAT and food, etc. The financial sector reforms, of course, continue. And the Bankers Association, in our last meeting held with them on September 22nd, 2015, commended my administration for the passage of FATCA Act, and they indicated to us that they're all ready for FATCA. Data from the commercial banks indicate less than half of 1% of the account holders will be subject to FATCA reporting. The disingenuous noises then we had from the opposition in disarray in the parliament has no resonance to reality. Pure mischief. I am happy to report too that we gave a boost to job creation and, as it were, self-employment and entrepreneurship with the EC $13 million Fresh Start program that was launched in collaboration with PDV, St. Kitts and Nevis, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Development Bank on the 4th of September 2015. I am pleased to report that so far, over 300 persons have applied for this easy business loan. 1.5 million has already been disbursed. Another 58 have successfully been interviewed for loan financing totaling 6.9 million, and a further 217 applicants are awaiting a final determination. This Fresh Start, targeted at small and medium-sized enterprises, has caught on, and by and large has received overwhelming acclaim. I want, however, to caution the successful applicants to use this money wisely. Do not squander it, because you, of course, have to repay it. We are concerned in government that the former government was too occupied with foreign entities and preferred them for soft financing through the SIDF at the expense of the ordinary people of St. Kitts and Nevis and our small businesses. Foreign investors ought to bring more than an idea to St. Kitts and Nevis. They ought to bring good money with them, and they must have a real stake in the entities which they purport to set up. Under the bygone administration, deals were the order of the day. As those from abroad were better at the poker game, they often won, while sadly our country lost. The investors who ought to have helped us with foreign direct investment invariably got a disproportionate share of the resources that ought to have gone firstly to assist local people in St. Kitts and in Nevis, and of course other local entities. Team Unity, for the record, will always be supportive of foreign entities, but foreign direct investment must add value to our country, and we will provide the foreign investors with a conducive environment in which to do business, including strong banks in which to deposit their legitimate funds. But always our country and our people must have pride of place. None can blame us for putting our nationals first. In the same way, we regret the behavior of the former government with respect to the SIDF and the disadvantage at which our locals had been put. We have concern over the squandering of EC $11 million just before the general elections in a project called SAFE. This project was managed by Ambassador at Skipper Rosalind Hazel. It was a pre-election gimmick to win votes. No serious effort was made to hold beneficiaries accountable for repayment. There were cases, of course, where candidates, their families and friends were preferred to get funds purported to open businesses and for other purposes. A candidate, his sister, his aunt, his nephew, his niece far away were all offered large sums under the SAFE program. Yet no viable business is there to show for the largest to any of these beneficiaries. Collections have been horrible. We intend to recover the people's money, all 11 million of it. We are not opposed to publishing the names of those owing under that program and are yet to make proper repayment arrangements. While SAFE collections were disastrously almost non-existent, we are hard-pressed to rationalize the need to pay persons already in the public sector hefty sums while they presided over this SAFE program that was neither meeting the tests of accountability nor transparency. We have difficulty with the payments to such public officials as Ambassador Steve Rensford's of $50,000 and Rosalind Hazel, who the record would show earned $76,000. We thank those who since the New Day Dawn and February 16, 2015 have begun repayments, and we invite those who are delinquent to urgently take steps to repay before the strong arm of the law takes hold. As of Tuesday, October 6, 2015, only 75 of 300 persons had repaid any of their indebtedness, and these repayments were a mere 171,000 out of 11 million disbursed. I want now to turn quickly to the matter of law and order and to report on our efforts to create a more wholesome society. I am pleased to report that the continuing downward trajectory of crime is still evident. Crime which was out of control long before the people intervened on February 16th is trending downward. Still very high, still too high, but importantly trending downwards. Our new strategies are bearing fruit and we must not ease up. For the period January to September 2015, relative to January to September 2014, A.C. Piquilly last night at the town hall in Cayon reported that major crimes in the Federation were down by 23.5%. I repeat, major crimes down by 23.5% for the period January to September 2015. This, of course, is a most significant improvement, and we are not yet out of the woods, however. We continue to be concerned about the high levels of homicide, and my cabinet is of the view that one homicide is one too many. Hence, we have been supporting the police with their 6-point plan for fighting serious crime, and in particular, violent crimes. And I'm pleased to report that yesterday morning I received a check, or rather a check was presented by the Republic of Taiwan through the PS in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Osborne Petty, in the sum of $315 US, the equivalent of just over 850,000 EC dollars. These funds will be put to crime fighting, and in particular, some of these resources will go to the extension of the service of the Bramshill Police Advisors out of England and other initiatives relating to law and order. Our police will get the kind of mentoring and capacity building support so critical in the fight against crime, and systems will be improved in the agency, primary agency for law and order. I make an appeal now to all ranks of the police, from the constable to the commissioner to the more. The wait-and-see attitude will not solve crime. Neither will we reward inaction, passivism from our police officers. I appeal to our citizens to report any information which they may have on any crime. It doesn't matter whether the crime was committed recently or a long time ago. No crime, and in particular, no homicide, must go unsolved. The life we may save may very well be our own, or that of a family member, a friend, or even an acquaintance. You see something, please report it. The second announcement I wish to make with respect to law and order is that we are firmly advanced in getting consultants from the FBI in this country within the next 2 weeks. Just within minutes ago, I confirmed that this assistance is being organized with Ambassador Palmer out of the U.S. Embassy in Barbados. He is well aware that today I would make this statement, and he advised that this was firmly entrained, therefore there was no difficulty in the follow-up required. A third announcement in the area of law and order is for me to inform the country that Dane Hamilton QC, a well-known criminal attorney, is here in St. Kitts and Nevis. He is here on special assignment with us for the criminal assizes and other matters in relation to the criminal justice system. The last criminal assizes, I am advised by people in the legal fraternity, was or showed a very poor performance by the office of the DPP. 3 out of 35 cases were tried, only 3. 32 cases were traversed to the current September assizes. Daines Hamilton's support is a constructive boost to the criminal justice system, and much tutoring and mentoring will be had by those in the office of the DPP on request. The positive action which the Team Unity government has taken to resolve the tenure of the former DPP has brought stability, it has brought finality, and it has allowed for forward movement in relation to criminal prosecution. The criminal justice system is best served by a high-performing office of the DPP, by drawing on the expertise and experience of Daines Hamilton, one of the region's finest. We free the criminal justice system for the delivery of efficacious outcomes. We will not put a price on justice. No, we will not. We are prepared to go all the way to protect our citizens and residents and to preserve the sanctity of the justice system in general and the criminal justice system in particular. In the May assizes, I am advised that 5 matters were nulli pros by the former DPP, Mr. Sinanan. The consequence of these actions and others is that claims just under $10 million to date confront the taxpayers of this country. Certainly, we could not allow this unnecessary hemorrhage on the public purse to continue. The 4th point I wish to make is that we are hoping that early in 2016, we will witness the official opening of a second High Court sitting in Basseterre. Discussions have been between the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and the Office of the Chief Justice on this most important development in the fight to enhance law and order in our country. The 5th important development in relation to law and order is that the Criminal Justice Strategic Board is now about to be implemented. We are initiating a broad-based response of relevant intergovernmental agencies together to create a more wholesome society of less crime and deviance. The Attorney General will initially lead this board. Appropriation warrants for unlawful arrests, I missed this point earlier, for 2014 was about $11 million. 11 million in 2014 and 10 million already in 2015 adds up to a desperate need to rescue the criminal justice system. My government then, in the matter of the DPP, acted at the right time and in the interest of the criminal justice system. Without saying more, I simply say, thank God we did. I want finally to make an update with respect to the Sugar Workers Restoration Fund. We have received hundreds of expressions of commendation from former sugar workers for keeping our promise to pay EC 16 million shortfall to them. We created a transparent system, staffed with independent professionals to determine the best approach to fulfill that promise. That system performed remarkably well. All who felt aggrieved had an equal opportunity to apply. Indeed, after 4 months of promotion of the events, the establishment of an office in Basseterre, about 3,000 persons applied to receive monies. 2,311 beneficiaries resulted from the composite criteria involving inter alia, wages, and length of service. I must thank those who serve on the committee and all of the members of the committee. I think there were 17. All of them served without being paid 1 cent, a tribute to national service. This matter of the Sugar Worker Restoration Fund is a fantastic success for my Team Unity administration. The last administration said no money was there to pay. Team Unity found the money, all 16 million of it. They failed. We succeeded. They said all who were to be paid were in fact paid. They paid 968 persons. We paid 2,311 persons, more than twice the number they paid in 2005-2006. Of course, we disagreed with them. And all those 3,000 or so former sugar workers, by applying, indicated their dissatisfaction with their payouts in 2005-2006. Even some who voted against us had second thoughts, and they have commended us for this initiative. I have personally received widespread expressions of thank you from hundreds of former sugar workers and their families. Many of them hail from constituency number 6, which incidentally had the largest number of payout, 500 beneficiaries. And I want to make the point that there is nothing even strange about it, but it reflects the fairness of the system, because the sugar belt historically is from Newton Ground, come all the way up to Canada. And when you look at the payout statistics, you will reflect that in number 6, you had a high payout in terms of the number of beneficiaries. In number 8 and in number 7, there were the 3 largest beneficiary regions. Of course, in Nevis, they also had beneficiaries. And across constituencies 9, 10, and 11, beneficiaries were identified. And so some of that bonanza, if you will, also reached over the waters, rightly so, to Nevis. I want again to thank the government and people of Venezuela for their support to the government on this particular initiative. As of last Friday, October 9th, $9 million approximately was already paid to 1,532 of those who qualified under the program. The Secretariat continues to make it easy for persons to receive their checks expeditiously by putting in place mechanisms for home delivery to those who cannot come to the office. Again, this is one way of ensuring that the true beneficiary receives their due. A total of 41 checks have thus been delivered in this regard, totaling just under $500,000. With respect to those who have claimed on behalf of deceased persons, we now have put in place a number of lawyers who will help in validating the documents, but also will prepare documents for those persons who will need that help. I want to thank some of the lawyers who have undertaken to provide this support. Denise Aline, Delara McClure Taylor, Agatha James, and several others. Their services will be available at the Secretariat from Monday to Friday, and the Secretariat will be calling those claimants on behalf of deceased to render appointments for them to see the attorneys. In other words, we are attempting to do this properly, decently, and in order. I want to end at this point, but again to end on a note of appreciation for the country, for the strong support it has been given and showing for the policies and programs being implemented by Team Unity. Thank you, and I await your questions.
Ken Richards, Win FM. You've been talking about the land for debt arrangement, Dr. Harris. We have Operation Rescues Dwyer Astafan this week talking about the possibility of the bank having to take a haircut. One of the things you mentioned in your radio program last Wednesday is that you remain unhappy with the $25 per square feet issue. You've said that there are two drafts before Cabinet looking at the issue. Is one of the possibilities having the bank reduce the cost per square feet, and wouldn't that kind of mean a haircut? And I was under the impression that haircut has become a bad word in St. Kitts and Nevis because of previous experiences.
Thank you. Well, I certainly have not used haircut in relation to this matter. I think you quoted another source. The only legitimate source really are members of the Cabinet. And I did say last week that this matter is before the Cabinet. The matter is not yet determined by the Cabinet, therefore wouldn't like to preempt it. Only to reinforce that the matter of the land for debt swap, as you know, was a matter which agitated the country, and we took the cue from the country. We have the realities of government, and certain further information has been put to us, and those matters now have to be considered in the totality of the country's interests, not just the bank, and the bank is a critical entity nonetheless in the advancement of the country, being the largest bank in the OECS, largest by deposits, largest by loans, etc., etc. And so we have to pursue this thoughtfully, and the Cabinet has not yet completed its evaluation of the matter. We have heard from the IMF, we have heard from other interested parties with respect to the matter. Our views are well known. We will do the necessary evaluation, and then we will come, as we have indicated to the public, to say what the final determination is, and as we consider that to be in the public's interest.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Ben Bart from MyView.com. I have two questions for now. First off is there are rumors of police officers who have been suspended, one of whom might be related to the shooting incident in Nevis. Could you respond on that to indicate whether or not this is so? And secondly, there are rumors going around that there was a major theft at the Charleston Secondary School where some equipment and tools were stolen from the multipurpose center. I'd like to get some comments on those two, please.
In relation to the purported, or the rumor as you put it, and it's very difficult to deal with rumor. Say if we have the Commissioner of Police here, and perhaps at some point after you may want to engage him, I myself wouldn't want to get involved in a discussion of possible suspension if that is being contemplated in a disciplinary organization such as the police. But the police commissioner maybe at some point may want to address that matter. As to the rumor of a theft at the school in Nevis, I am certainly unaware. I am not sure if the Premier wants at this time to engage in that, but I certainly would be guided.
Well, thank you very much, Prime Minister, members of the press. Today I was advised that there was in fact a theft of equipment from the school. We are still, I think the police will do the investigation, but this is equipment which the government had procured for the school's multipurpose program to help with the TVET program, which we want to develop. And it is a sad situation for us, regrettable, but I'm sure we will get the police to do all in its power to do the necessary investigation, and we hope that we could recover or find the perpetrators of that crime and recover the equipment. I think that is all that we can say at this time, but it is regrettable that items which are used for the development of people have now become the source of criminal activity. And it only shows you where we are, and we really have to step up our fight against crime in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you very much, Premier. And let me add then the voice of the entire cabinet in condemnation to the perpetrators of that crime. And that is why we are speaking about the creation of a wholesome society, a new vision for St. Kitts and Nevis, in which law and order, the peace and the tranquility, and issues, the values of self-respect, those stand high in our new society.
Carol Philip Tudor of the Democrat. You have had quite a mouthful to say about the criminal justice system, and I would like to ask some questions on that. But firstly, you have talked about a Deputy Consul General of Dubai, Miss Elsa Wilkins Ambrister, but I don't recall you talking about the Consul General. Is there one? In terms, sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
In terms of the criminal justice system, you talked about the $11 million that was racked up in 2014, and now to date we are at 10 million. And you talked about the criminal justice system being rescued. And I wonder if you were referring in that instant to the DTP's office in particular and the confidentiality agreement that was signed between the former DP and the Attorney General. And is that your way of saying that that money, whatever amount it is justified because there was a bleeding from the coffers, in particular to the justice system? And you talked about Dane Hamilton being here on special assignment, and the question is whether at some point, whether Gosai, who's now acting as DTP, whether he will move over and Hamilton will take over, or there will be another DTP assigned, or will Gosai grow into the job?
I want to thank you for those questions. With respect to the Consul General, that person is awaiting agreement from the relevant government. In fact, his appointment, we have named an officer from our embassy in Washington who will be going to Dubai and who will head that as a Consul General. That person was delayed in part because you will recall that Ambassador Dr. Thelma Philip Brown was named, and until she had her agreement satisfied and properly sorted out, we did not want any diminution in the quality of service which was available in Washington, D.C. Now that she is there, I think she has already presented her credentials. The mechanisms have been activated for that officer to go on promotion to Dubai as our Consul General. And as soon as that is finalized, we will alert the public. In the meantime, as you have said, we have had the agreement in relation to the deputy, and so she is in fact providing the leadership until he gets there. So when he gets there, we should be well advanced having regard to having somebody who would have been up to speed in relation to our the assignments there. Going back to the criminal justice system, I stayed clear, you will recall, of any reference to confidentiality agreement. But I do agree with you that there has been bleeding in the criminal justice system, and any objective observer having regard to the figures, the numbers, the number of cases that have been traversed from one assizes to another, it was a reflection that the criminal justice system was certainly not working for us in the way we would like such a system to work. We have attempted to bring remedial action in that regard. We have had to, in the context of certain developments, one of which the tenure, the ending of that of the DPP, make arrangements in the interim, and I think we did say that, for the interim appointment of Mr. Gosai in the office of the DPP. It is not expected that his would be an extended tenure in that office, and when that is completed, we will then proceed to, before his tenure is ended, we will do the necessary advertisement, etc., with a view to recruit in an appropriate individual. In the meantime, we have the support of a QC who is assisting us in that particular area. Attorney General, do you want to add any clarity?
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The agreement that was had to be able to move forward, to bring some certainty to the criminal justice system, is sealed at the court, and the confidentiality agreement requires that we do not discuss the details. Obviously, some of the figures that are being bandied around in the press are utterly ridiculous, and it should be easily dispensed with if people were to put their minds to it. What I would say is that the system that we have inherited is one that has been fought with a lot of difficulties. As the Prime Minister said earlier, we had some 35, 36 cases in the last assizes. Only 4 of them were completed, 32 were traversed. During that same assizes, some 5 matters were nolly-prossed because there was no evidence to lead before the court. And so we have had, for this year already, a number of claims being made against the state, where the whole process of incarceration is being brought under scrutiny. We have some 60 people on remand at the magistrate's prison, where we need to be able to get them before the court to have access to justice quickly, and so we can dispense of matters where our criminal justice system is creaking. And so on the 21st of September, when this matter came before the court, there was an agreement between both parties. This agreement got the imprimatur of Her Ladyship, the judge, who ordered that the matter be sealed, and so this can no longer be discussed. I think the Prime Minister was very clear in saying that we have done a number of measures to quickly to put ourselves in a position to address this very difficult situation that we have in the criminal justice system. Within a couple of days, an acting DPP was appointed. He will act for a short term while we advertise regionally, locally and regionally, for a top DPP to come in and take over our system as we go forward. In addition, we have been able to engage, as he has said, the services of Mr. Dane Hamilton QC of Antigua, who is a leading criminal lawyer in the region, and who will be assisting as a special prosecutor in the September assizes, both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. He will also have as his remit to be training the staff, working with the staff in the DPP's office, to be working with police investigators, so that when matters are brought before the court, they are properly supported with proper evidence. The evidential process is done properly. And so we are beginning, as it was, to review a number of the outstanding cases to make sure that they're properly before the court when they do come. Obviously, as we have a backlog, a major backlog in cases, there has been an urgent move to have a second court being implemented here at the Limor Judicial Complex in Bastille. And we expect that this court would be available come at the beginning of the new year. We have had discussions with her ladyship, Dame Janice Pereira, the Chief Justice, and she has agreed in principle to provide for us a second High Court judge here in Bastille to be able to address these outstanding matters. And so we are hopeful that as we put these procedures in place, we'd be able to get a handle on this very critical area in our society. I think the Prime Minister has made the point that the Cabinet has agreed to our submissions that we implement a criminal justice strategic board, which will be an intergovernmental agency, the police, the DPP's office, the high courts, the prisons, youth justice, probation, and other stakeholders who will all come together to establish a broad framework to review the matters dealing with criminal justice in the country, and will make recommendations, set measurable targets and goals to reduce, as it was, the outstanding problems that we have. This board will be shortly be implemented, and we hope that it will give us an umbrella over organization or body to be able to help us as we move forward in handling the criminal justice system. These things are being done, and they are our focus. We expect that they will have bring to us positive results as we move forward with the criminal justice system. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Attorney, with your leave, Prime Minister. Sure. 5 cases have been nulliprosed so far. And could you tell me what process there would be that would lead to $12 million drain on the public purse?
Well, as the Prime Minister said, $11 million warrants were made last year to repair those things. What it would be that you'd have claims against the state for wrongful arrest. There would be claims that be brought where the people who have been incarcerated, some for 3 years and more, who have not come before the court. When these matters are withdrawn, they would bring claims against the court. That is fundamentally the issue that we have that's been faced with. There are a number of people on remand in the prison who are yet to come before the court, and these all have to be reviewed. It's an urgent matter, one of public interest, and should be the focus of all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that people appreciate that the office of the DPP is too important an office for there to be uncertainty regarding tenure. And at stake, as the AG alluded, are all that we are doing in terms of the criminal justice system. And we, for our part, we value and appreciate justice so much that we will not allow a team unity government to have itself in an antagonistic relationship with the court, and to have the criminal justice system at a time when there is a need for a paramountcy with respect to law and order, to have that antagonism. Imagine a field day you could have, for example, when some of the criminal lawyers are in court arguing whether the DPP, who basically would have undertaken this particular action, whether in fact there's any substance and validity. You know, and it is that kind of quandary that we had to look at. And of course, our decision, as I said, to free the justice system was predicated on what was in the best interest of the country. And we could because we have the best lawyer. We have the best lawyer in terms of public policy in the Caribbean. We could have taken this case as far as it would go. But then you have uncertainty in the criminal justice system. And you have the police needing support not being able to get it because the system become fractious and people are doing things which will not help in the cooperation that ought to occur in the criminal justice system. And so we look at the big picture and we look at many other factors. At the end of the day, what this government did and what we will always do is to consider ultimately what is best for our citizens. Because you could go all to the end to the Privy Council and win, but you could be entangled for 3 years in appeals and counter appeals, and at the same time, your system is getting, as it were, hoodwinked and battered, and few cases are coming up because you had other structural impediments to the efficacious and the efficient disposal of cases in their sizes. And the backlog which we spoke to is a reflection of that. The prisons are already overcrowded, and yet justice must be swift if people are to have confidence in it. Again, what we did, whatever others have to say, we are the ones entrusted in making these judgments on behalf not of some, on behalf of all the people. And we did that and we stand by that. We believe it was the best way. The assizes started, the assizes are continuing, no confusion there. And we will have an opportunity in the fullness of time to do the appropriate recruitment. In that regard, I want to thank Mr. Gosai for accepting the offer to serve. And equally, I want to thank QC Hamilton for accepting the opportunity to serve in St. Kitts and Nevis. That is a man with a reputation that long precedes him. It's therefore a mark of confidence that he has chosen to come and to be with us and help us. Even at a moment of high controversy, he was able to look beyond that to see that there is a need for his involvement. And so, on behalf of the country, because all of us in the end are the beneficiaries of an effective criminal justice system, I say thanks to these particular individuals.
Good afternoon. Caliber, ZIZ News. Dr. Harris, 2 questions. You said the prosperity agenda would be complete by the end of Team Unity's second term. How would this be done by the end of the term? And also, you spoke of the SAFE programs and the $11 million that were paid out. You said the government plans to retrieve the $11 million. How do you plan to go about doing that?
Thank you for those 2 important questions. Prosperity, of course, I did say will not happen overnight, and that once we start on the path, we have to be able to sustain it. For my own stance as the leader of Team Unity, I am bound by a 2-term limit. And I've looked at the Trinidad experience, for example, where the legislation passed 10 years, 6 months, rationalized, as it were, the 2 terms in their context. And so, by the end of the 10th year, the agenda over which I'm presided must be substantially complete. And when you look at some of the things that we have committed to and to which the persons have voted for, you would recognize that they will go beyond 1 term. When you look at the state of the civil service and the reforms that we have to bring on board, when you look at the situation with respect to crime, how far down that slippery road we are, where for over 5-6 years we have been listed among the murder capital. While we have a short-term program coming from the police, these things have to be sustained to get us where I would like St. Kitts and Nevis to be. 1 murder, 1 homicide, or none at all. That was when I was growing up. And that is what I would want for the future generation. I give you another example, perhaps more practical. We speak in our manifesto, the agenda of hope for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, that we will build a bridge joining St. Kitts and Nevis together. A bridge of that magnitude will require significant man-hours in order for that to be effected. And that certainly, I am advised, could not easily be delivered within one term. And so some of the things that we have in mind are big things which will transform St. Kitts and Nevis for the better. And that is why at the end of the 5-year term, we will come in back to the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis and say, give us the next 5 to bring to completion the Team Unity Prosperity Agenda. So that is where that has come from, and that is our hope and our wish. With regard to the $11 million, we are now diligently trying to get the records together from all areas from which they can be had. We have now established a desk in the skipper, that unit, and that person every day is calling up those who we have information and at least some documentation would have received monies from this program. Indeed, we were able to collect many of the cash checks, so we have the physical evidence. And so what we are doing is to build the database now. We have the name, we have evidence that the check was cashed, we get their village, we get their phone number, and we have assigned a young lady who is there, Miss Edwards, and her job is daily to make contact with these people, to say that this money has to be repaid, to invite them to come to her office and to make the necessary arrangements. We believe ideally $11 million ought never to be left in any department of government to be handing out loans. If the government wanted to do that properly, the government could have put that with National Bank, Royal Bank, Development Bank, any other agency that has a portfolio of loans, therefore would have had the appropriate systems to be able to deal with this matter. But this was intended to be a free-for-all, to curry favor with the voter in the hope that people would vote. And I am thankful that many of these people took the money and they voted them out as they rightly ought to have. And we do wish to work with them. We are not going to, as it were, be crucifying them if they can't pay back all at one time. Indeed, we would expect that there will be some payment plan and that payments will be made regularly. So we will be decent and we will make sure that we make reasonable arrangements with these people. We are not holding against them the fact that they have received this money. What we want is for them to show the responsibility so that we could properly create a revolving fund, if needs be, where other persons with genuine needs can really get the help that they deserve. You see the kind of excitement already we have had from the Fresh Start program for the small and medium-sized businesses. Within September the 4th, just a month, over 300 persons have come forward. Already $8 million in loans have basically are at an advanced stage. 1.5 already paid out. So there's a high demand really. And I would say genuine demand. And the bulk of the applicants we are seeing at the bank are really persons who are young, engineers, landscapers, and beauticians, etc., etc. We even had one young person who was being able to apply to set up her professional practice. So there are important needs out there for which people really need easy financing and for which it will take you too long to go to some of the commercial banks. and they will require too much for you to be able to access the loans. Indeed, for the vast majority of the people, the commercial banks will not entertain them. The development bank, having regard to its structure and its philosophy of empowerment, indeed, development banks all over the Caribbean came out of the need to deal with the felt demands of people who were ostracized from the established commercial banking system. That is what we want to do, to create another support mechanism for people. So we urge and we encourage. And if that failed, there are other mechanisms. We could name and shame, and we could then go to the court, and the long arm of the law, I am sure, will not be weary in reaching them and forcing them to do that which they ought to do voluntarily. So that is how we will deal with the $11 million.
Prime Minister Harris,
Yes.
allegations of victimization again surfaced over the past week. And the opposition leader went as far as suggesting that the wife of a former minister who died and was victimized by you, blamed you, in fact, for that. How do you respond to that? I also have another question, the reparations.
I would respond to that quickly by saying again, this is a maladjusted member of the opposition who could hardly deal with the rejection of the people trying to create mischief. And it is astounding that the person who is making such an allegation is a medical practitioner, and he could make the charge. I have already put that matter before my attorneys because I believe he need to pay, and to pay as much as the court will find just in that particular matter. I find it regrettable, and I find by naming the lady and her husband, he is in fact victimizing the family, who in a moment of grief should not be hearing their family's name being scandalized. This is a lady who had gone through the system, had reached the retirement age, a lady that he himself, Wilson Power, refused to give a contract, who we allowed all the courtesies when we got there, allowed her to take her holidays, which is her due, allow her time, gave her notice of our intention not to continue, as it were, the month-to-month arrangement which were there. The lady and I were always good. I suspect the last week, I would recall, I met her up the government step. She reached out to me as she always would. Dr. Harris, continue to do good. Continue to go to good. No enmity, nothing at all. I wish her well. When she was ill, seriously ill, she indicated to me that she was a sick lady. I think the entire people and family know that she had been suffering for a while from ill health and had her own complications. Therefore, it is unfortunate that the gentleman would have gone that way. So that is political hogwash, really, and that is a matter I will take to the attorneys.
The next question has to do with reparations. I don't know if you're aware that the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, P.J. Patterson, has written an open letter to the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, basically blasting him for his position against reparations. I don't know if you have a comment in relation to what Mr. Cameron said, because St. Kitts and Nevis is one of 15 CARICOM countries seeking reparations from Britain and other European countries which were involved in the slave trade. Can you comment?
Yes, we are fully in support of the call for reparation. I believe what we have to do is to find the right way of messaging. I believe that it has been and it will be a difficult message for a conservative government in the UK to accept if the notion of reparation comes, as it were, packaged as compensation. And we have argued when we were in the margins of the UN that we have to repackage this in the context of the post-2015 development agenda, and to say to those countries that ought to be providing the support, accept the reality, which they all do now, that slavery was an evil, that slavery was an atrocity against humankind, and that it did irreparable damage to the psyche of people who basically underwent that wicked system. And that in the consequence of that disadvantage, there is a need now to help those societies that have suffered to get their development agenda fast-tracked, as you are. And there are a number of initiatives in furtherance of development, without saying that anybody compensating anybody, which I believe people are prepared to put their mind to. Indeed, in the meeting which I had with the Prime Minister, he did say that the government view was that, as it were, the past is the past, you can't go back all the way back to the past to right wrongs. I think it is something, an idea, that most of us will accept. But he did concede that in the context of an agenda for development, the British government would be prepared to give reasonable support. So I think it has to do with the messaging, and I believe that since this matter of reparation was started in earnest maybe some 10 years back, it was how do you message it? How do you get people who, as it were already locked in a certain view, to come and give you the support? And what we have realized since then, if you are going to put the message in terms of compensation, that doesn't really do the trick for you. And we therefore have to find the message. Because what we do know, they have accepted that slavery was an evil. And they have accepted that their society has been complicit in that. And it's how we go from there, I think, that we have to address.
Prime Minister, in the context of the 11 million you mentioned earlier with regards to the disbursement of funds during elections, and also in the case that in the manifesto of Team Unity there's reference to campaign financing. How important is this to your government at this time in terms of the speediness of your actions to deal with this matter, to put it on the national agenda, to have a discussion about it, and to find ways and means of determining what do we do first? Your comments, please.
Which matter we are talking? The
we're
11
talking
million?
about, no, we're talking about campaign financing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, campaign financing certainly is one of those matters which will fall clearly under the rubric of the governance agenda, which we say for our parliamentary agenda starting next year, we will begin to roll out. We have already identified one of the signal P's, freedom of information. I've identified another, term limits, to come by next year, and you have now identified a third one, the matter of electoral financing. That has been around for quite a while, and yet it is still a very fluffy area in terms of how do you implement it, the various safeguards, etc. We do not have in the Caribbean, to my recollection within CARICOM, a model yet, but there have been certainly a series of discussions about that. And we will have to find our way to national consultation about this, looking at best practices, inviting support from the Commonwealth and other entities that can provide that support to help us perhaps emerge as the leader in relation to the matter of campaign financing. Are we for it? Yes, we are. Certainly, we ran the campaign on a poor man's budget. And the message that we had from that you can't buy votes with money, you have to buy them with a message of hope and love. And so we are committed to that. And we wouldn't want to go back to the scenario that we had last time with all those planes and finding hundreds of thousands of dollars, thanks that the good Lord intervened and some planes were late. We might have a different kind of conversation in a different place today. So we are committed to the idea of freeing democracy and allow it And we said that during the campaign. We would really want the campaign to be a contest about ideas of good governance, of true development, people-centered development. And that is why we try to avoid the scandalous remarks and allegations that you are hearing from that platform, and they continue today. When you ought to be hearing from them now. What are their solutions, for example, for crime? It is this really outlandish allegation that somebody or some entity is responsible for somebody's death. I mean, give me a break. We are in the 21st century.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question. According to the Social Security figures, as you have mentioned, about 304 new businesses have sprung up. About 150 of them are self-employed businesses. Are you under the impression that persons are coming over from the PEP program? And if not, and I'm not asking you to be in a hurry to take bread out of people's mouths, but even the IMF have indicated that PEP is a temporary program. When will you begin to dismantle PEP? And one follow-up, the program over which the former Ambassador Hazel presided, could you say what the acronym for SAFE is?
Small enterprise. SE, S for small, E for enterprise, A for assistance, and F for fund. It sounds like safe, but it really wasn't safe.
With an E.
Yes.
And
SEA.
fund with a D, not fun.
We will, in the budget for 2016, provide our view on the reorganization of the PEP program. We are going to step up on PEP and make it better and more ennobling an experience for our citizens and residents. PEP really should be about skills enhancement, ensuring that where there is a dearth in our country of certain skill sets, that people are being trained to be able to do those things. So, for example, steel bending, for example. There's a high demand for those kind of skills. You go on many of the job sites and you see what some may consider too many foreigners. And you hear from the employers, well, we can't find those skills within St. Kitts. That, in our view, is what the PEP program ought to have been. Because if you provide the skill sets that are in demand, then there will be no need for us to be talking about PEP 3-4 years in the way it is now, as if people are on a PhD program. So they are on the PEP and they are not coming off. And part of the reason why they are not coming off is that there really are no permanent alternatives. Now, if you are training persons for the jobs, then as soon as they are trained, they ought to go into those jobs that become available. And part of the challenge too with PEP, to me, even at the basic level, if PEP was functioning, it must equip our people with certain soft skills, punctuality, something as basic as that, a sense of responsibility, a sense and an appreciation of what a fair day's labor is about. And a fair day's labor for a country like ours in search of people-centered development can't be that people go out at 8 and by 9:30 they finish with the work and the job and they are being paid a full day's pay. It is a waste of the taxpayers' resources when those kinds of transgressions are allowed to continue. And so something as basic that you must at least put in 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, so that we don't have people for a whole week and they go from here to there. And you are paying for it. Your taxes are supporting that. And we are saying no. At the basic level, we should see some change in people's appreciation that we need production, we need productivity, and that punctuality is important, and that the number of bad words used on the job, that has to be contained. If PEP is not doing anything of that sort at those basic elementary level, then PEP is not advancing the quality of the human capital which we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. We will not, as you put it, dismantle it. We will reorganize it. We will step it up. We will create something much more ennobling for the people. And we want them to get a fair chance, a fair share of the prosperity. And for young people, we must say that to them that they have to equip themselves. And there are a wide range of areas in which we believe we could get people to become involved in videography, in music, and so on and so on. As we look at the growth in tourism and new entities coming on board, the Park Hyatt next year, around fall or before. Some of the things they want is to bring genuine St. Kitts and Nevis tastes and preferences that would help captivate their incoming guests. And so there must be room in that for the highlights and the high marks and all the other infamouses that we have, and so on and so on. And so these are areas in which we would want to, as it were, expose our people. We hear how, for example, teacher pension at the opening and at the prize giving, well, I say prize, but the payout of the sugar worker monies, how he has been able to master the art of poetry. And I have heard during the campaign a young sister, Miss Knight, right here on Central Street, being a gem in the artistic display, oration and oratory, and how those things can become avenues from which people will learn. We have had discussion about introducing filmmaking into the country and all the various add-on skills. A PEP program reconstituted must speak to those things, must speak to the diversified talent base within the country. It must begin to address, for example, that in the near future, if Ian Patrice Liebert succeeds with the geothermal project on St. Kitts, and we succeed with the geothermal project on Nevis, that there are going to be new skill sets in demand. And can we begin to, as it were, fashion people's minds and approaches that allow already for the development of some of these skills, so that we don't always have to look yonder for whatever we need. And we go on a number of projects and we see that we are looking too often yonder. Again, we have to do that. I go to many barbershops and I am amazed at sometimes how few there are both in St. Kitts and in Nevis of our own people doing that craft. Spanish and all other nationalities, and they do an excellent job. And I wonder sometimes, why can't some of our young people in their villages, large villages, some of them hail from, at least develop this sense of entrepreneurship and open a shop which they can call their own. And I will visit every one of them, because I've visited in Patches area, I've visited at Liverpool, I've visited up at adjoining Greenlands, Jamaican barber shop there, my good friend. I visited at the pub in Keon, and so on and so on. There's a lot that we learn from those places. And we would really want more of our people basically to become involved in entrepreneurship. And that is why I was impressed when we were told that over 304 persons came on board and registered as self-employed persons and some as new employers. 150 also self-employed, 154 new employers, both in Nevis and St. Kitts. I think that is a good way towards a path of self-reliance, and which we have to encourage more of our people to embark.
Mr. Prime Minister, my last question. Glenn Batt from myview.com. I'm talking now about national monuments. Independence Square. We have the Berkeley Memorial, or the circus as most people call it. We have got the War Memorial. And those are just a few that I mentioned. But I don't know how often you take a walk through those places, but they are in desperate need of repair. And sometimes not only repair, but regular cleaning. What can be done? I'm trying to figure out who is responsible and how can we improve our image, seeing that we are in the tourism industry as well.
I want to thank you for an important question and to say, just as the last cabinet, we had engaged in a discussion about Bastia generally, the urban, St. Kitts and Nevis, what it should look like, and who should basically be providing leadership in that regard. You would recall that we have a ministry, and in it, part of the labeling reflects urban development, and we have the Honorable Ian Patrice Libert here, who we gave a mandate that we would want at the time of the budget to be able to speak futuristically about what the new urban for St. Kitts in particular would look like. And so I would want to invite him now to perhaps address that concern. But we are looking at an interministerial theme involving his ministry, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Environment, and NGOs, etc., to come together to ensure that the environment looks good, St. Kitts is clean, the country is attractive, you know, and it makes you want to be part of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have discussed the whole system of the architecture, whether it is French or British. Should we provide incentives for businesses and entities, not just businesses, who want to maintain a certain kind of historical architecture? So we are having those kinds of discussions. The leadership rests with my good friend, the member for number one. I now invite him to conclude on this matter.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. If I didn't know my colleagues in cabinet, I would have said that Mr. Batt would have been apprised of what we discussed. But there's a great minds think alike. But just to add to what the Prime Minister intimated, that about the Interministerial Committee and the collaboration with the private sector, we in fact have gone ahead and had discussions with the President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Damon Hobson. He has been kind enough to share with me as the Minister some of the issues that came out during the Bastia Beautification Committee period, which we are trying to reinvigorate. We have spoken as well, I don't think he'll mind if I call his name, Maurice Widdowson, who is passionate about what a Bastia should look like, especially in that Berkeley Memorial area downtown in Bastia. Yes, it's looking dilapidated, but we are focusing on, as the Prime Minister said, the urban revitalization of St. Kitts in general, starting firstly with Bastia. When you look at the bus terminal, for example, down at the bus terminal and ferry dock downtown Bastia, I mean, is just that what you want to see when you're coming from Nevis? For example, you enter in Nevis and come into St. Kitts. I mean, is that what you want to see when the tourists come and land here in St. Kitts and taking a ferry over to Nevis? And we are looking at
those areas, we are looking as well as areas, the best Independence Square I should say rather, and trying, and we will in fact revitalize those areas in our process of the entire urban renewal of St. Kitts generally. And as the Prime Minister intimated, by budget time, we'll have more information as relates to the overall program relating to the revitalization of Bastia and the entire St. Kitts and Nevis. Cleanliness and friendliness and our hospitality will guide us.
There being no other question, I want to just thank all of you for coming out today to be part. I want to recognize the presence of the High Command of the Law Enforcement Agency and to thank them for coming. I want to also thank our Special Advisor from Brams Hill, who is here providing support, and to say we value your contribution. I recognize the leader of the police in Nevis, Mr. Brandy. We want to thank him. He's not in Bastia as often as the Commissioner should direct him. But we thank him for coming out today and to be part. I am attempting to get to Nevis, I think tomorrow to meet. I don't know if that is finalized, but with the officers there. But I leave that. And let me also recognize our ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency Mr. Sidney Osborne, and all the other persons who are here. Thanks again for coming out, and thanks for allowing us to disseminate the information to the St. Kitts and Nevis Society. Those who are listening from abroad, again, we thank you too for tuning in. Thanks very much.